Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a pretty epic story about the glamorous, dangerous, and honestly, almost entirely forgotten origins of early Hollywood. We're looking at a place that was part Wild West frontier, part glamorous playground, and part industrial factory. It's a crazy story of incredible innovation, literal biblical-level disasters, and a mysterious death that, people are still whispering about today. Let's get right into it. So, have you ever checked a traffic app while driving up the coast from Santa Monica toward Malibu? If you have, you might have actually noticed a peculiar name pop up right at the intersection of Sunset Boulevard and the Pacific Coast Highway. The map says Inceville. But, if you look out your window, there's absolutely no town there. There's just the ocean, the road, and the hills. This ghost town literally haunts our modern digital maps. To figure out what it really was, we've got to rewind the clock back over a century.
See, today, that intersection is just a modern, busy stretch of pavement packed with commuters. But back in 1912, this exact spot was the epicenter of a sprawling, chaotic, 18,000-acre film empire. It was one of the very first movie studios in the world, a literal boomtown built entirely to manufacture dreams, illusions, and moving pictures.
Which brings us to Section 1, Building the Bison Empire, Thomas Ince's dream.
This dream was spearheaded by Thomas Ince, famously known as the King of the Westerns. And to build his empire, he didn't just, rent a soundstage. No, he leased the wild California coastline and partnered with the Miller Brothers 101 Ranch. Now, this is where a fascinating connection between California and Texas really takes root in early cinema. They essentially imported authentic Texas and southwestern cowboy culture, along with massive herds of cattle, straight from the plains to the California coast, to create an entirely new world from scratch. The sheer scale of this operation is almost absurd, 18,000 acres. At its peak, this fully functioning mini-city housed 700 people on site, including up to 100 Lakota Sioux brought all the way from Oklahoma just to live and work as extras for Ince's hugely popular westerns.
And Inceville was a literal city of illusions. What's really interesting here is the insane variety of structures they just stack side by side. Imagine driving along this dirt coastal road, right? First, you'd see a full-size lighthouse, and then a Scottish village with a stone church, a New England Puritan settlement, a massive pirate ship just bobbing in the Pacific, and a frontier army fort complete with a log palisade. It was basically a theme park, decades before theme parks even existed.
Moving on to Section 2. Inventing the studio system, a streamlined assembly.
Now, legend actually has it that Ince would direct scenes from the saddle of his horse, galloping through the dust from one shoot to the next. But off the horse, the guy was a brilliant organizer. Before him, a single person might write, direct, shoot, and edit a movie entirely by themselves. Think about that. But Ince, he completely revolutionized the mechanics of filmmaking by creating the studio system. By formally separating the roles of director, screenwriter, and editor, it meant he could actually have multiple film crews working on totally different projects at the exact same time. He basically turned messy craftsmanship into a highly streamlined assembly line.
And this highly structured system yielded just staggering results. 800 films. That is how many movies Ince was able to produce in just 2 decades. By controlling the scripts, utilizing his massive roster of sets and actors, and keeping all those crews rolling simultaneously, his studio became an absolute powerhouse of early cinema.
Next up, Section 3, Stars, Sets, and Scandals. A non-stop party.
You see, Inceville wasn't just a factory. It was a massive tourist draw. Intrepid visitors would hike in or literally take the trolley just to glimpse stars like William S. Hart or the famous Hollywood vamp Louise Glome. It was a total magnet for aspiring actors and a playground for the rich and famous. Take Broadway star Billie Burke, for example. You probably know her best as Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. Well, in 1915, she arrived by private railcar, getting heavily wined and dined by Ince, and in her 1916 hit film Peggy, which was shot right at Inceville, she sparked an absolute media scandal by wearing pajamas on screen. No way, right? This daring wardrobe choice caused total pearl-clutching in the press, but it actually single-handedly popularized pajamas for women across America.
The allure of the place was just undeniable. Silent film star Dorothy Dalton captured the vibe perfectly in a 1919 interview when she called Inceville the most romantic of all motion picture encampments. I mean, the sheer magic of making movies right on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by cowboys, pirate ships, and Scottish castles, it gave the studio this mystical, larger-than-life reputation.
But, as we'll see in Section 4, The Fall of Inceville, Relentless Disasters.
As with all empires, this cinematic boomtown was systematically dismantled by what can only be described as biblical-level disasters. I mean, look at this timeline. In 1915, a wildfire burned through the sets. In 1916, a fire broke out in the cutting room, injuring Ince and 8 employees, which was then immediately followed by a massive landslide that completely cut off access to the studio. Then in 1917, a fatal mudslide collapsed scaffolding, tragically killing 3 crew members. There was yet another fire in 1922, and finally, a devastating Santa Ana-driven wildfire in October 1923 wiped out nearly everything that was left except for a single stone church set.
The combination of notoriously explosive nitrate film stocks and these constant, devastating natural disasters was just too much. Ince eventually threw in the towel, sold the cursed coastal studio to his friend Western star William S. Hart, and moved his primary headquarters inland to the much safer, controlled environment of Culver City. And with that, the era of the wild coastal movie boomtown was essentially over.
But wait, the story of Thomas Ince doesn't end with a peaceful retirement in Culver City. No, it ends with a massive Hollywood true crime mystery. In November 1924, Ince was celebrating his 44th birthday aboard the yacht of media tycoon William Randolph Hearst. Guests included Charlie Chaplin. Well, Ince fell suddenly ill and died shortly after. Officially, the cause was a heart attack, but rumors immediately swirled, and they persist to this very day, that Hearst actually shot Ince in a jealous rage, mistaking him for Chaplin. The truth, of course, remains buried in Hollywood legend.
So what does this all mean? What should you take away from this explainer? Well, Thomas Ince's legacy lives on in the very DNA of the modern Hollywood system. Every single time you see credits for a director, a screenwriter, and an editor, you are seeing the framework that Ince pioneered right there on the dusty cliffs of the Pacific. Inceville may just be a ghost on a modern GPS map, but the invisible foundation it built still holds up the entire film industry today. It really makes you wonder, what other ghosts are we driving past every single day without even knowing it?